Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer90.com. Check out all the latest FC Dallas, North Texas Soccer Club, U.S. Men's National Team gear, Dallas Tornado jerseys. Get that sweet jersey with the 67 on the front. That's the latest piece in the Dallas Tornado Soccer 90 collection. Use code Third Degree at checkout for 20% off. Third Degree, 3RDDEGREE at checkout, 20% off. Some exclusions apply.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to episode number 206 of Third Degree, the podcast. Hello, it is me, Peter. As always, hanging out first with promotion-ready Luton Town big fan Dan Crooke. Howdy, Dan.
Hey, well, not if you ask some of the media in the UK. Sky put out a graphic that listed the top four, except it admitted third place Luton because they're apparently not in that promotion hunt.
You're going to get there. I believe in you.
I hope so.
I'm rooting for the Hatters to make it to the Premier League.
Root for chaos.
Absolutely. And your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, founder and editor of thirddegree.net, the grand old man, Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Yeah, I was confused there about whether Dam was promotion ready or Luton was promotion ready. I wasn't clear.
Both.
Yeah.
They're one and the same.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Fair
one
enough.
and the same. All right, boys. Well, this is a victory pod because we are celebrating a road win. Dallas goes to Miami, which, am I correct? That's the first time they've played in Miami since Miami rejoined the league?
I think so.
I think that's correct.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
I've only played 3 times, I believe, if that's right.
I'm 99% sure this is their first time, and they got the 1-0 win on the road. All right, Buzz, here I'm going to do my best here because I know I'm infamous for being negative, pessimistic, and grumpy and grouchy about all things about this team.
Firm.
And that's a very fair label for me to receive. So I'm going to try really hard here, but I'm going to tell you, I know road wins in this league. You take them as you can get them, and there's no style points. But I am so far not very impressed with the 2023 FC Dallas.
As a total or just on the road?
Well, I'm especially disappointed in this particular performance, but overall so far, I'm not. I mean, look, they're not gonna. They may make the playoffs, but this is not an MLS contender so far this season in my eyes. Buzz, I'm not there. The cool vibe that we got last season, especially early in the season, I'm not feeling it this season.
So you're not buying that they're in 4th place in the West and they're.
I just you know how this league is early in the season. I'm just talking about the way they play, their inability to finish. Miami is a terrible. That is one of the most. I hope you guys agree with me with this. In all the years we've been watching this league, have you seen a team as absolutely shitty as Miami was that night, Saturday night?
Yeah, they're pretty bad. Whether I can come up with a team that's worse, there's definitely been some teams that have been worse than that. I mean, there have been some teams that have struggled to even get a win at all.
Let's be fair. The Dallas sidekicks would tie them.
There were stretches of the game where I couldn't figure out. There's a big part of me that believes part of the reason why Dallas played so poorly in this game is because they couldn't figure out how to operate things because Miami was so scattered all over the field in the weirdest ways.
Yeah, I mean, look, it doesn't look pretty, but the difference between coming into these games, the difference between Dallas and Miami was literally just 2 goals. That was the only difference on the whole season. They were like 2 points apart. They were like 2 goals made that 2 points difference.
Even though Miami had lost 4 straight games?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because, Dallas
won the first 2, right?
Yeah, Dallas only has 3 wins now that they beat Miami. So they were 2-2-2. And Miami coming in was 4-0. So Dallas had 2 more ties than Miami.
Ties will screw you every time.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So, look, it's the beginning of the season. Everybody stinks. I think sometimes we lose because people like us don't watch every single game in the whole league. That's fair. we lose sort of context sometimes. You look at where Dallas is in goals against, they're kind of middle in the pack, but we've talked about how the defense isn't quite as good as last year. Goals in the Western Conference, they're like 5th or something. So, while it's not stylistically looking great, a big contributor to that is the choices they're making and how they're going to play this year. So I'm not too upset about it in terms of its productivity. I do agree that it could be a lot more fun if they would play in a more pleasing way. That's certainly true. And there are some cracks that make me nervous about the long-term viability. But literally they're in 4th, and I thought they were going to finish like, what did I say, 5th? And I think Dan said 6th. So this is basically just tiny bit better than we actually expected them to be all year. So I would agree with you that it's not great, but they also have 11 points, and there's teams like Kansas City and LA that have 3 and have scored 2 goals all year. I mean, believe me, it can be worse. For sure.
Oh yeah. Look, all of this comes from a place of a good place as a fan, Buzz. We've been watching this team now for 27 seasons or whatever it is, and we all want them to win MLS Cup. And you get to this kind of early stage of the season, and you just want to feel like there's something that may make this season different. And I guess what I'm saying is that I feel like this team isn't performing better or even equal to what we saw last season. And I think that's where, especially against a team as just obviously awful, you don't have to be a tactical, breakdown guy to have seen Miami playing what ostensibly was a 5-0-5 formation. I just was like, thanks, Phil Neville, for not playing any center mids against us. That was awesome.
Let me first give you a little context, right? If this was a league that was a single table, clearly it's not, Dallas would be in 9th place. So instead of thinking about Dallas as being a good team, like if you were thinking about the English league, they'd be with top 6. No, they're 9th. That's Brentford, that's Fulham, that's current Liverpool. You know what I mean? So it's like, while this team is decent for MLS and decent in the West, it's not great. It's a middle of the pack team. So contextually, that's just the way to think of them. We want them to begin at the top. But the other side of the coin is, particularly with Miami, and this game in particular, is that Dallas did to them what everybody else does to Dallas, which is mid to low block, 30% possession. I mean, Miami had like 60%, I think it was, or obviously more, since now that I just said Dallas was at 30. I don't think they were quite at 30, but it was in the 30s. Mm-hmm. The point being that, like,
32.
Yeah, there you go. It wasn't quite 30. It was close. So the point being is that Dallas had no interest in having the ball. They mid to low blocked. They went into their game kill mode that they go into on the road. They destroyed the middle of the park and made it impossible. So Miami did what Dallas does when this usually happens to them. They tried to play around the outside. They tried to play over the top without having any fast guys. So, it looked terrible, just like it looks terrible when people come into Dallas and do the exact same thing. So, Miami's probably better than that game looks. I don't know if they're a lot better than that, but they're probably better than what that game looked like.
All right. One of you guys, we'll take the negativity filter off, and you guys tell me why we should feel good about this and what worked and what didn't work. I'm sorry, I started off on the wrong foot. I apologize to everybody.
No. I actually think you have 100% legit complaints. This not a sexy team. It's not as good as it was. Excuse me. It's not as good as it was last year. Those are legitimate concerns. I just don't think it's as Titanic bad. It's like the boat's not sinking or anything. But Dan, what do you think was good? Since I just jumped in and just told you it wasn't.
The move to the 4-4-2 was nice. Jesus Jimenez's movement, how he kind of kept, his part in keeping Jesus Ferreira, who had a fantastic game, in was great. Facundo Quignon actually looked progressive. Misplaced a couple of passes, but he played some really nice, tidy ones, made some great recoveries in the midfield. So much so that in the early stages, he was active enough that every time a dark-haired, white-ish dude in the back half of the field touched the ball, the commentator said, "There's Quignon." It wasn't, but they said it was.
That made me laugh so much.
Very positive. And hey, 3 away games into the season, you've won one, you've drawn one, and you lost one at the reigning champions, by far and away the best team in the league, and you came away thinking, shit, should have won that.
All right, thank you, Dan. You made me feel
That's
a
some
little bit better.
positivity.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate it. That's good I feel better now. Okay, sorry about that. Buzz, so let's talk more about, because of the situation with personnel, the change in formation, what was the genesis behind that? And is this something, Buzz, that you think that you're going to see more of moving forward?
Yes, I do think that, to start with the back end of the question, I do think you'll see more of it going forward. And we'll get into more about why as we get into the next games and training and stuff. But the genesis of it is that, Jimenez is a player with a good resume who they wanted to try and get into games more, and they wanted to push his minute load. And also, in particular for this game, because of the way Miami plays, playing two strikers, and both he in the postgame show, Coach Estevez, and Jesus Ferreira in his bit he did midweek about his goal, they both specifically referenced it as a two-striker system. So at times, it does look a little bit like a 4-2-3-1, but also defensively and offensively both, it does look like a 4-4-2. Again, this fluidity and tactics in the modern game, but it's a two-striker system, and it's really important that you grind that into Jesus's brain, because you don't want Jesus to think he's a midfielder and come back and stand next to Paxton. So that's really important. And I think you'll see more of this formation going forward because of the fact that we've talked about for years now with Jesus. We've talked about his best position being an off striker. Both he and Jimenez are guys that move when they play striker. So there's a good feedback there between those two guys. They're not a striker. Neither one of them is a guy that sits in the center channel and occupies space. They both put the center backs under stress. And in this particular case, they wanted to make the Miami center backs are, apparently, they tell me, both very aggressive in the sense that, like, if there's only a single striker there, one of them will go forward quite a bit. So they wanted two strikers to make those guys both sit back. And that contributed a little bit to why there wasn't much going up the middle in part. And also, when you defend in that system, it spreads you wide and it creates that two-block look because those what ostensibly used to be wingers for Dallas and now so much aren't right this minute, sit back on top of the back four and you get that double block look. So it's a good solid formation, both defending and a block, which Dallas likes to do. And it's good getting forward with two movement-based strikers who feed off each other. So I think it's a pretty good shape, and it worked pretty well. Jimenez subbed out on a minute restriction because it was pretty much exactly at 60 minutes. And before that, he'd only played up to about 30 or so. So it was pretty clear that's what was happening. He didn't like it, but that's what was happening.
So I was somewhat interested in what went down. Dallas had held this 1-0 lead all the way, for a good 30 minutes or so. And so right at about, as you mentioned, he subbed Jimenez out at 60, but right at 70, and for the next 4 minutes, he proceeds to go through three more substitutions, three more. And he makes he finishes out the rest of his available subs, and I was a bit confused what he did with that personnel in that shift.
Yeah, I specifically asked him about that because 20 minutes of a bunker is a lot, and it turns out that Jesus Ferreira, Paxton Pomykal, and Alan Velasco, all three took little knocks in that game, and they wanted to sub them out as precautions to protect them a little bit and not get them injured worse. But he also knew he needed to at some point go to this, or he wanted to at some point go to 3 at the back, or if you prefer 5 at the back, whatever that defensive shell is. And he doesn't have enough subs to do both. So he couldn't take out those 3 guys and still be fairly progressive and then later take out 3 more guys because that's too many subs, right? So he had to, his hand was forced that these are the only subs I have. I've got to go ahead and do the change now, one of which was to bring in an extra center back and essentially make a 5-4-1, and play that sit back even more so deep block that they like to do apparently late in games. The problem, of course, and he and I also talked about this, is that you do occasionally need to relieve pressure. Your front guys, even in this situation, need to be able to hold the ball, recognize if it's on, okay, I'll go ahead and go. But if it's not on, cycle it back, get a couple of passes in, let the defense get it out and get its breath. It's when you can't relieve that pressure at all that it starts to get relentless and then you get yourself in trouble. So they did that a little, but they weren't good enough at that. And it's something that he said that they were going to work on actually tomorrow, strangely enough. Well, not when I was there today, but in training. But he actually told me they're going to work on that tomorrow because it's something they want to be better at, that relieving of the pressure when they do get those build outs on those bunker situations.
Yeah, that was a rather scary final 20 minutes of that game.
It was. Yeah.
You just based on what had happened of late with Dallas, I'm just going to speak for myself. I was fairly confident this was going to end up at least a 1-1 draw. So, and I don't feel like I'm unjustified in that concern. Buzz.
No. Yeah, when he made that sub, I was like, no, that is way too early. And so it was nice to learn in context that he agreed it was way too early, but it was just hands were tied, and it was intended to not quite be that complete of a bunker back. But that happens when you put in defensive guys. Everyone says, "Oh, we're defending," and they all come sit back. And part of that too is the personnel that he had available to him at that moment. And O'Brien's not great about possession dribbling, but that's who he had because Velasco had to come out and Areola had to come out.
Well, he didn't sub out Velasco.
Well, he did eventually, did he not?
No.
Oh.
The subs was it's listed as Ibby for Pomacall, O'Brien for Ferreira, Cerrillo for Areola, and Tuamase for Giovane.
You're right. He didn't bring Velasco off, but in hindsight, he probably should have, or probably would have liked to have. Maybe he ran out of options because Velasco did have a knock and is mistrained today because he's day to day. But Areola has been injured, and he was also part-time today. And Paxton and Jesus both had knocks also. It didn't want to come out, either one of them, but they were kind of forced. Their hands were forced. So, it's not optimal. Sometimes you just got to deal with what you got to deal with, and you got to do what you got to do. And this is one of those situations. But I was with you, Peter, that I thought that's way too early, and I was getting really nervous with all those balls were getting fired in. But at the same time, Miami did not have a lot of really good chances.
No,
to be honest.
But Miami's terrible.
Yeah.
and they did start to take, anyway, I guess the question I'm coming away from this is that obviously the change in formation came at the expense of Leggett, who did get to sub in and play the last 30 minutes. But my question is, is this a better version of Dallas that we saw? I mean, I hate to say that based on the performance, but does the formation change and Jimenez for Leggett create a more dangerous or different style attacking team that Buzz, you think we'll see more of?
Yeah, because if you look at this game, not with your eyeballs, because it's not enjoyable to watch, they actually had 16 shots on goal, which is more than they've had at home lately by about 4. And they had 8 of them on goal, which is 50%. That's a better rate than they've had all year. And in fact, if the Miami keeper doesn't have 7 saves, which is a mind-bendingly amazing performance out of a keeper when you have 7 saves, if that doesn't happen, if it doesn't stand on his head, it's ridiculous. I think Coach was telling me that, I think it was 30 minutes in, Dallas had 1 goal and 9 shots and 7 on goal and some just these ridiculous numbers. And Miami was 0-0-0-0-0. So for 30 to 40 minutes, they completely dominated the game. For the first half, they dominated the game. And even over the course of the whole game, including a 20-minute bunker, they still had a spectacular, for them, 16 shots and 8 of them on net. So this is a really, really good performance. The problem for the eyeballs is that for this team, possession doesn't really mean anything. They're good when they transition. They're good if they do a quick press and turn you over. They're good when they recover in midfield and break the other way. They're good when they build out and they break your front line and then they transition quickly. So those rapid transitions, when they catch you napping and they get the ball in a good positions and they get good shots on goals, that's when this team is good. They had the game at home where they had 60% possession. It was terrible. They had 10 shots on goal or something like that, or shots total, or maybe it was 12, and 4 or 3 on goal. That's horrible. Mm-hmm. So you can sometimes, with this team as it is now, it can look bad and look boring and actually be really, really good. This is a dominant performance. You just the last 30 minutes of it sucked because they're bunkering. But up until they had to sub out all those guys out, they were stomping the tar out of Miami in this game, even though they never had the ball.
Without trying to play ifs and buts, I mean, just to Buzz's point and about what Nico had said, you think you got first shot in a 7th minute, Velasco tries that curling effort from outside the box, keeper makes a good save. Jimenez has that that header 2 minutes later, puts it over. Really should have buried it. Ferreira has the what was it? It was that left-footed pullback. Caught it from outside the area, just cleared the crossbar. Keeper was nowhere. You had the double save that came up couple of minutes later. Yeah, they should have been 3-4-0 up in the first 20 minutes, and then Inter Miami doesn't get their first shot until the 42nd minute.
Yeah, if you buy into the XG stuff, Dallas is like at 1.5, like 30 minutes into the game. They finished at 1.9, which is almost 2. So that shows you that despite the fact they don't have the ball, they're creating better opportunities to score. Miami got it to 0.5 by the end of the game, and that included the bombardment of play over the last 20 minutes of the game that got them to 0.5, because at halftime they were like at 0.01 or something.
Yeah. The problem with XG is that for you to get an XG value, you have to have a goal scoring opportunity, right? Right.
Yeah.
And what I worry about for Dallas is the seconds prior to that, because what is worrying me as a fan is the fact that Dallas continuously, especially in this game against an awful Miami team, where they are in an attacking scenario in which they should be creating shot creation opportunities or something that's going to generate an XG value. Yeah. But they're so sloppy at times, they don't even get to that point, and they just turn the ball over, and now they're back defending again. And that's what, to me, is very different from this team last season. Last season, we were worried about them just being efficient in their finishing. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm more worried about them being more efficient and not so sloppy in getting to the point that they create the opportunity. I'm not even worried about finishing at this point. Yeah. I'm more worried about what's happening in the 30, 60 seconds prior to that.
Well, I know what you mean, and I would agree with you that on the whole this season, they've been low. I think we talked about every game. They've been lower in shots than we would like. This one with 16 on the road is actually deceptive, because that's actually really good. And if you can on the road for this team, actually in this league, like in the history of Dallas, I didn't actually look it up, but I bet if you want to look it up, I bet you'd find that 16 shots on the road is actually a really high total.
Yeah, I would say so.
8 on goal is really high. Like, you're forcing 7 saves out of a keeper. That's a phenomenal on-goal performance. If he doesn't have a game of his life, he's not, it's going to be 4-0.
Right.
Right. And I agree with you on the XG thing, but I use it at best as were you creating some quality opportunities? But if you look at the FC Dallas shot chart, only 4 of their shots come from outside the goal box. So they had 12 of their shots inside and 4 out. That's an incredible ratio of getting in tight and good positions. I just think that for the most part we feel the way we do, and I feel like you, that it felt really poor. But it was only I think because we got overwhelmed by the second half being so bunker and flat and game kill, because they were already up decisively at that point. So and decisively in terms of the game control. And it really wasn't until the 60th minute, even the 70th, when they actually made that triple sub, that they lost any of the momentum, because all the stats were continuing to climb even for the first 15 of the second half, despite the fact they didn't have the ball. They only controlled possession once, and that was the third 15-minute interval of the game. Miami controlled the possession, sometimes by massive chunks, for all the rest of the game. So it's just you just have to train your brain to think that possession doesn't matter for this team.
Oh, that's amazing, considering they had no center midfielders in that game.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Just pass it around the back. They lucha ball.
It's ridiculous. Now, Dan, I don't know if you have taken time to spot on the red crayon written run sheet this curious little line item in here that Buzz has included, and I'm fascinated by it, because one of my favorite things about this game were the sideline shots of club great Jason Kreis with his stereotypical way too serious face on.
What was he watching on that tablet? Was it
I don't know.
Was he trying to catch up on Ted Lasso?
No, I think he was watching the last episode of Succession or something. He looks so serious. But Jason always looks like that. But here in the run sheet, Dan, have you seen this, where Buzz has written down Jesus Ferreira equals Jason Kreis? What's that about, Buzz?
Well, I'm sure Dan will have a take on this too, but he may not because he hasn't seen or wasn't here for the early days of FC Dallas. And basically that says that Jesus, of course, compares himself to his dad all the time. And lots of people want to do that comparison because he's his dad. But I have said from the get-go that Jesus Ferreira does not play like his dad. His dad was a legit 10. Jesus Ferreira is not a 10. Jesus Ferreira is an off striker. The best off striker in club history until now is Jason Kreis. Jason Kreis was at his best playing off a 9. Him with Graziani was the best pairing that we've seen here.
It ever. God darn it, that was awesome days.
Yeah, him with Dante Washington. Him with Mickey Troutman, even, who was an over-the-top kind of striker. Whoever you could come up with that played striker with Jason. Jason was always the off guy, picking up the rebounds off of headers or the knockdowns or the deflections off of goalies or working those little combinations. That's when Kreis was at his best. That's when Jesus Ferreira is at his best, like Jason, right? You don't want him dribbling. You want one touch and shot or even rapid shots without any touches at all. That's when Jesus is at his best. He's at his best with movement. Jason, same way, cutting around, moving around the box, dragging strikers out of position. Whenever Jason would try and post up as like a post up 9, he would get wrecked by these center backs because it wasn't his game and he didn't have the size. So I just think that like if you want to talk about the history of this team and guys that are the same, and if we want to look at like how Dallas should play to maximize Jesus, the answer is look at what Jason Kreis did.
Man, you just made me start thinking about Graziani and what and how lucky we were to have had that guy. Because if there was ever like a guy who stylistically played like and I'm not saying he was a world-class European league type player, he just played like that. And could you imagine the 2016 FC Dallas team with Graziani up top, or even this current version with Graziani up top?
Yeah,
it would just be. It would be. It was awesome. I hope everybody listening to the pod gets a chance to dig up old burn tapes and watch Graziani and Kreis play together because it was great.
What's amazing about Graziani is as short as the time as he was here, that was his longest stint in his entire club career. It was like 2.5 seasons. That's the longest he was ever, because he wears out his welcome so fast because he's such a royal butthead, or he was. He's probably matured now, but anyway,
he had a lot of hair, Buzz. He had lots of hair problems he had to deal with.
He did. I suppose if you want an English analogy, Jason Kreis to Graziani is Sheringham to Alan Shearer, maybe, where Teddy's the off striker.
Yeah.
That's what you want Jesus to be. So I don't know if Dan buys that analogy or not.
Sure, let's go with it. No, you've been saying for a long time that Jesus Ferreira isn't an outright 9, isn't an outright 10. He's a tweener, and that the closest comparison is Jason Kreis.
Yeah. And what's funny about that is that's always what kept Kreis from being a national team player, is that Arena at the time couldn't figure out what to do with him. So it is interesting if we want to give Jesus that same label, that he has figured out a way to, or had other people or have found a way to get him on the national team.
Yeah, it's a bit of a question mark, how that can fit in the current system they play, the 4-3-3 they play. Some people tried to draw it up today, with Vasquez, with Brandon Vasquez, like, oh, could we play Jesus? And they want to draw him up like underneath, like in the midfield with like 2 wingers. I'm like, no. That's you're not getting it. You can't have Jesus for a sub in for Weston McKennie. That's not how it's going to work.
Right.
He's got to be, if you're going to do this, you got to play him up top with, if you're going to play him in a 2, I mean, you can use him as a false 9 just now, like Dallas did last year. That's fine. But if you want him with a striker, you got to shift the formation more than that and play like a legit 2 striker. I think him with Brandon Vasquez would be phenomenal. I'd love to see that. You just have to adapt your whole thing to do it. You can't just stick him in for one of those other, for Musa, in that same shape and expect it to look like that. It won't.
No. Okay, so anything else about Dallas 1, Miami 0 that we want to get into before we move on to the next topic at hand?
Well, I think we have to talk about a couple other things really quickly, just that things that I think you're going to continue to see. Giovanni was pretty damn good again.
Yeah.
Obviously, Nicosia Tafari was pretty damn good again. Marco Farfan is having to play a whole half of the field himself because they're almost completely abandoning the left half of the field, partially because Velasco plays as a false nine, so that overloads them to the right. This game was like 45% down the right channel or something. So that's a problem long-term because it makes you one-dimensional. You got to work on that. So there are some aspects of this game that are continuing forward with things that we've been wondering about or watching that are bigger issues that I have to take into account as we go along this season.
Okay.
I guess it was a little lopsided though in this game. Was it the left, or I guess he'd be left wing back in that 3-4-1-2 that they played? Just played such a ridiculously high line that he was basically pressing Farfan for 90 minutes.
That's perhaps part of it. Again, the way Dallas plays is also part of it. I think for once they went up a goal, they weren't looking to get aggressively forward on the outsides anymore anyway. That probably was also part of it. They were just having a lot more effect down the right too, of course. But, the bigger question, regardless of like the actual splits in this game, is just in general, the way Velasco plays, which we like. He looks good. But if you're going to play a false wing on one side and not a false wing on the other side, and then leave that whole outside wing open for Farfan, you're going to eventually have some issues there. If you're going to abandon the left side completely, then you end up with what you end up with, which is guys overloading Farfan and coming out Farfan all day. As you say, Dan, move it with that extra wingback coming up into that section. It wasn't that was probably the biggest stressor. And when Farfan got that yellow card later in the game, they even for a while put O'Brien was out there like playing as a wingback outside Farfan even for a bit. And then somebody else did it after O'Brien stopped doing it because they were trying to solve that overload. That was the weirdest thing. At one point, there was 6 across the back. It was so nuts. But that's an issue, that overload of that section. If Velasco's not going to play out there, and once you're in a 5-4-1, there should be a midfielder over on that side. I think it was Velasco wasn't helping out enough, so it's a problem.
There was a point in time in that game that Miami had pressed so many players up against Dallas's back line that Dallas was answering by, as you said, Buzz, with like 6. There was literally like 10 guys in a line. Yeah. It was the weirdest. God, that game was so weird. I don't know, man.
Well, and Miami weirdly went to like a one striker system sort of at one point, and we're just firing balls into like one guy. It's like, I would have thought they would have overloaded the box or something, but they didn't. They didn't want to do that.
Yeah, but once they got the ball and Dallas was falling back, it was like the 2 center backs, nobody in midfield, and the rest of Miami all in one line, all trying to like at the top of Dallas's box stretch from touchline to touchline. It was really strange, and I think
that actually contributed to why Facundo Quignon seemed to have such a really good game. It's because they weren't attacking his zone at all, and he was able to be really progressive with his passing, which in this particular game is what they wanted him to. They wanted him to stay at home and be progressive in the build-out, which he was. So he was actually really effective in that role and had a really good game. Granted, Miami didn't attack that zone very much, so it was fine. So game scenarios matter, tactics matter, and the way you employ them matter. And it was good to get Facundo a game in there and Edwin a game off, and Facundo was fine. And that you're right. At the end of the game, there was like Miami had like a circle. They were making a 10-man circle over them with a giant hole in the middle, like they were in elementary school or something playing Red Rover. It was really weird, but. They resorted to just booting it in from the wings, so that's all they really had at that point.
And man, talk about, I know the guy had an absolutely as bad a knee injury as you could possibly have, but Josef Martinez's fall from form and when he was back at Atlanta, literally the point, I didn't even realize he was in the game until they finally did a close-up shot of him about, 20 minutes into the match or something like that.
Well, I don't know what Dan remembers, but I remember a player who was quick and they wanted these balls that like split the center backs on the ground and letting him running onto them or playing like quick combos in the box. And they didn't do any of that. They kind of like hoofed it up there and hoped he would do something or like fired in for balls for headers, but he's not a header guy. So it's really, there's like a disconnect. I get that he's fallen off, but there's also a disconnect between who he is and the way that team plays. They have a lot of high-priced guys that don't fit together in my mind.
Yeah, the partnership between him and Campagna was just bizarre. It didn't seem to play to either of their strengths. So,
Weird team, cool pink uniforms. I dig it.
Well, they made a good trade today. Did you see that trade they made?
Yeah, I saw the trade.
ridiculous.
I was worried that I worried for them. They got rid of one of the better. I mean, it was like one of the actual. There was actually center mids in the game for them, by the way. The Duke kid, who I thought had a nice little bit of feistiness to him. I guess they got rid of him today.
Yeah, but they picked up 1.3 million in GAM, and they picked up a Canadian defender and got rid of Ariel Lassiter, who's
So,
junk.
have you guys read the conspiracy theory behind this trade?
No,
That's running around the interwebs. So the conspiracy theory is that because everybody's like, how did this makes no sense? Like they could have gotten, this could have been done without all of this going down this way. And several people have intimated that all of this GAM that they got was a lead up to somehow working out all the Lionel Messi math.
Oh, the Messi Busquets math, since they're coming together now.
Well, or if it's just Messi, right? Like, how are they ever going to justify that salary and all of that? And so Montreal is like the 2023 version of the Freddie Adu Dallas deal, where somebody just went to Montreal and said, hey, look, if you guys do this deal, we'll make it worth your time down the road, but we need somebody to give Miami all this TAM or GAM or whatever it is so that we can get Messi in the league. I know it's all bunk, but it was fun reading and to at least think about for 5 minutes.
Well, the fun other side of that was the story that came out today that Messi and Busquets have decided they're going to get together wherever they're going, and that they don't care about the money. And it's just about those two guys playing together, and the money doesn't matter. And that's why, like, now it's like it's going to be Miami or Barcelona. Basically, was what the story was that I was seeing make circulation. I have no idea if
not the
that's
Middle
true.
East.
Well, I guess apparently for both of them to be playing together and happy and don't care about the money meant that it wasn't going to be the Middle East, because you only go to the Middle East for the 400 million. You don't go there to play.
I see.
And live the life, right? So, like, who knows? I don't cover Barcelona or Messi. I mean, no clue. I'm just saying that was the fun story reading today, because how I feel about Busquets, so I'm pretty hyped about that part.
If those two guys really want to go together somewhere, I'm going to guess they're both going to end up making hundreds of millions of dollars in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia. That would be there, because no, I don't think that's going to happen. I bet they, if all things being the same, I bet they'd rather go play together in the Middle East in an easy league, making a lot of ass money, than trying to help Barcelona fix their thing on little money.
You might want to set yourself up in Miami for the next 20 years or something.
Yeah, but then you got to take commercial flights to LA and stuff like that.
Fair.
You know what I mean? The travel bit.
You get 5 charges a year.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough. All right, let's see. So Real Salt Lake this weekend, Buzz. Anything in particular we need to know or look out? What do you think the lineup's going to be? 7:30, by the way, in Frisco. And if you're an MLS season pass person, it is not, I repeat, not one of the free games according to the MLS website.
Right. So according to Coach, and I take him at his word on this because I kind of tend to agree with it, RSL is a team that likes to relentlessly transition. So you're going to look at two teams and neither one of them want the ball. They're both going to want to transition. And so transitional moments are going to be the key to this game, like getting forward fast and making sure you're in a good position if you do turn it over. So a lot of Dallas work, I think, this week, at least what I witnessed, was on stability of shape even when attacking, making sure you have your width, making sure your outside backs are not getting too adventurous. I think that actually the same formation will lend itself to this game. I do think that in terms of center backs, you're going to want guys who can run. So I'm thinking Nkosi Ibi again. That's the way I'm leaning. And then I think you'll see Edwin come back in for Facundo, because Edwin is better at stopping transition because he's got more range. He gets sideline to sideline and intercepts better, whereas Facundo's more stay at home and static. So I think those are your big changes. I think they'll keep that formation. So the real question is Velasco going to be okay because he's day-to-day? See how he reacts today. Because if he comes through today and is fine and into the session tomorrow, then he'll be available. Areola was on the side some, but also trained some, so he's obviously sort of day-to-day as well. So those two guys mean a lot for you in terms of who's going to play these wing outside half positions based on whether they're fit or not. Obviously, at this point, Leggett could be in for Areola and Obrian could be in for Velasco, if you needed both, if you needed just one, you could obviously switch Paul over to the left and bring in Sebastian on the right. Sebastian could also play for Paxton if you felt like Paxton wasn't fine after his little knock, but he went all day today and looked great to me, so I don't expect that being a problem. So those are kind of your talking points about who might be in and why they might be in based on a couple of late week decisions on health, and also I think Ibby and Ebon makes sense to come back because of the kind of team that Salt Lake is. And it'll be a very vertical game because neither team wants to sort of sit back. They both want to transition at you when they can. And I don't think either one will be blocking. And Dallas will probably start blocking if the game's going their way, like they do on the road when they want to kill the game late.
Seattle comes into this game in 10th place.
Salt Lake, you mean?
I mean Salt Lake, yeah. What did I say?
Seattle.
Oh, Salt Lake.
Salt Lake.
Salt Lake.
There you go.
Salt Lake comes in on 6 points in 10th place. They're one of the, now that 3/4 of all the teams get to play in the playoffs, they're in the rarefied air of not qualifying for the playoffs.
Jesus.
They give up a lot of goals. Yeah.
Yeah, they lost 2 consecutive games 4-0 before beating, Charlotte. Miami will beat Charlotte at some point. The Dallas Sidekicks. The Dallas Jackals will beat Charlotte.
They won a game.
They have won a game.
Yeah.
A game.
Yeah.
And Dallas, by the way, as Buzz says, is in 4th place, tied with 2 other teams on 11 points. All right, Buzz, you went to training today. I saw your training preview and your nifty visor, the official uniform of the Third Degree, the podcast, I suppose.
Well, that's not the new one. That's my old Adidas visor. I haven't gotten the new one in yet. I just made it yesterday.
Where are Dan and I's visors?
They're available for you guys to purchase. Dan bought some stuff.
I did. $150 worth.
Wow.
Wow, what a shitty company. You got to buy your own uniform?
Yeah, well.
What is this, pay for play?
Yeah. You can take it out of your paycheck.
It's cheaper.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than yeah, it is. Hey, by the way, speaking of stuff, did either one of you pick up your Tornado kit jerseys?
No, not. Oh, I needed to do that today and I forgot.
Okay.
I didn't really like it as much as you guys did.
Oh, did you not buy one, Dan?
Nah, they look like one of those.
They're a sponsor, Dan. Be careful what you say out loud.
You can be real. Say what you think.
Yeah, come on, blast it.
I would like some embroidery, some something that's not just like,
some dainty
t-shirt.
lace on the sleeves, maybe.
No, just more jersey, like less. This is a shiny T-shirt.
Hot sports kit opinion from Dan. He wouldn't wipe his bum with it.
I didn't say that. I love me some Soccer 90. I wish they'd do more fat boy sizes, but
Yeah.
Okay, all
I
right.
had the same problem, Dan.
Well, I have mine in my possession, and I have waited to give everybody my opinion on it, and I'm going to wait till Buzz gets his because I don't want to bias Buzz's opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to listen to the podcast while I'm in the UK just to find out your opinion on the jersey.
Oh, you're not going to be here next week, Dan?
No, this is my last one for a few weeks now.
That's right. He's going back. He's going to go see Luton play, aren't you?
Oh, I've got a work conference next week, which is going to keep me off, but then that finishes on Friday at noon. I go from there to the airport.
I don't need your itinerary. Are you going to go see Luton play? Yes or no?
Yes, I will be there watching Luton play Middlesbrough.
Oh, sweet
Oh,
baby.
Luton.
Good
Which
Lord,
is
that's awesome.
Currently 3rd versus 4th.
Oh, wow. What a tie. That's awesome, Dan. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope you will send pictures back so that we can share them on the social media with everybody else.
I got a buddy who's a photographer down there. I'll get some off him.
Okay. All right. We just need Dan. Here's what I want. I want a picture of Dan and in the beard standing in the garden entry point at your stadium, please.
I am actually going to be in that stand, so I'll try and make that happen.
Because I want everybody to see how tiny it is.
I'm a little worried that I'm going to get through the turnstile. So. The last time I went in that end was 8 years ago, and it was a bit tight then.
Oh man. Uh-oh.
Those old stadium turnstiles weren't built for the modern man, were they?
I did one time, I think it was at Aston Villa, see someone who had to get turned away and go through like the ADA type entry because they just physically couldn't.
So you're going to be a headline in the Sun of man gets stuck in turnstile at Luton.
That's right.
Yeah.
Turns out he lives in America. No one's shocked.
Oh, American, of course.
English
that'll make it-
expat home
Yeah.
for vacation dies at Luton Town
well, it's not
turnstile incident.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, sorry, Dan. I don't mean to make fun of you. We're laughing with you, not at you. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Anything else, Buzz, that we need to get into all of this stuff before we move on to your recap of the Dallas Cup?
Nothing remarkable. It was interesting on one level because, as I said, there were some guys that went with North Texas who had a game today. By the way, they've been outscored 7-1 in their last 2 games. They got a real problem.
Yeah, they lost to Austin tonight, didn't
Yeah. Well,
we're not
some
gonna
of
hear
it's
the end
rotation,
of
some
that.
of it's like give other guys a chance, but like there's a couple of guys they've put in that have not been up to it, and like I'm like, ooh, so that's a bigger question for a different day. But so because they were missing those 4 or 5 guys, and because some of the the 17s and the 19s that were playing in GA Cup or whatever and aren't back yet, the 17s, not the 19s, but so they actually had a couple of guys come in from the 19s that don't often or ever get first team invites. And I'm not going to necessarily say their names to say because it wasn't negative. It was fascinating because you're pulling in 4 guys that aren't necessarily like the guys that are like the cream of the 19s that are with North Texas. Cause there was a bunch of those guys were there too. These were guys that are good players because if you play for the academy, you're a good player. But I call them sort of middle of the pack of the starting kind of players. And they were great in the sense that like they came right into first team training and were able to keep up and do the drills and made some good plays. I mean, there's been times in the past where guys have come in, not necessarily from the academy per se, but from anywhere, frankly, and just been brutal. And then they get tossed or people start yelling at them or whatever because they can't do it. And it was just really cool to see a bunch of, 4 basically 17, 18-year-olds come in from the academy that aren't the names that you're going to know necessarily unless you're a deep follower of this club and actually be able to keep up. That was super cool, I thought. So that was fun.
That is good to know.
And they all did pretty well. I'll tell you who they were. It was Dylan Lacey, Mikey Morales, Santiago Ferreira, and Diego Ferruzzi, who's Marco Ferruzzi's kid. So those 4 guys did a good job in training today, so shout out to them.
Hey, mentioning about that, you did the thing. You released an article today that I tend to believe is one of those things that you do that causes all sorts of noise in the hallways of North Texas high schools, because all the soccer kids get excited when Buzz starts naming names and putting them in lists and things like that. And you did that today.
Yeah, the hot list. It's intended to be a celebration of people that are doing things that are fun or interesting or making achievements. I don't do it very often because people get confused by it sometimes, and they think it means that those are like the players that should be signed or something. I don't know why they think that though, because I'll put female players in there too, which ought to tell you that that's not what it is right away. But it's a celebration of people that are doing cool stuff, and so it can range from anything from the very highest caliber players who are making noise that way down to like I think I had a U11 in there who's basically a 10-year-old kid. Because he scored 14 goals in one tournament and led the team to to the finals of a tournament down in Brazil. Wow. So it's just a celebration of guys doing great stuff, and I think people enjoy it. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to celebrate kids that are doing cool things in the academy. So I like it. And later this summer, like when they finish this season, I'll do the semi-annual list of actual homegrown target signing potential, but that's not what this was. This is just the hot list.
Yeah, this is just FC Dallas players too.
Yeah.
The list that you've been doing lately that I think gets everybody all riled up in the area is the one that includes kids from other clubs.
Yeah.
The prospect list, I think, is what you would call it. Or I don't know what
there's this weird thing now where because the territory rules mostly been eliminated, Dallas can tap or tag, however you want to use, whatever word you want to use. I think it's 9 kids from outside their academy that play for other academies in your general territory area. So basically, you can call dibs on these 9 players. Now, it used to be literally every player in the Metroplex. So this is actually better in a lot of ways. But I think coming up this month sometime, I think I'm going to take a shot at predicting or guessing what the Dallas 9 players outside the academy are. And I think that'll be fun, I think, to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Because that'll be non-FC Dallas players. It'll be Solar and Texans and who else? Well, we'll see who it can be, but that'll be a fun one to do too.
The parents and the kids in the North Texas soccer community look forward to Buzz anointing future prospects.
You know what? I should tell this story. You know how many people I talked to at the Dallas Cup, which is a fair number of people come up and say they love the podcast and all that stuff. A surprising number of them told me that they listen to the podcast with their kids that play. And I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll drop a couple of F-bombs less, perhaps. But I thought that was really cool. They hear that people, because some people are like, hey, I'll do stuff with my kids. They like soccer. So we do that together. We listen. I thought, wow, that's really cool. So it's always nice to meet people at the Dallas Cup, which is fun.
Well, speaking of the Dallas Cup, and yes, Dan, that was your cue to cuss less on the pod.
No, just me.
Oh, just you. Oh, you're the potty mouth of the podcast.
I've decided I'm going to try and cuss less, but
Well, I appreciate that you haven't dictated that Dan and I can't tell butthole jokes anymore.
You can still do your thing.
Okay. All right, Dallas Cup is done and dusted. The glory days feel like they're all but back now for the Dallas Cup in terms of quality of play and quality of teams, et cetera, et cetera. Is that
almost? Yeah,
almost. Yeah,
almost
9/10 of the way there, maybe.
It was way better, way better. I think they still could use a little bit of work. I think they came up a touch short in the super group in the end. Maybe by a team or two, but they still had all the good flavor was in it. And I think they need a couple of more international teams like at each age bracket. It was a little heavy domestic still, but big step forward back from last year when it was actually pretty bad, all things considered. Some of it is, I think it's a big benefit to move the GA Cup away from Dallas Cup. A lot less congestion in the field, a lot less problems in terms of referee congestion in town, dominating
just less confusion
general of hotels and complexes and traffic and what's at what, and even just like what I could go see was a lot more comfortable, because if I'm trying to squeeze in the 17s and the 15s, all of a sudden it's way more complicated and it makes it much more running all over the place. Obviously if you're the director of FC Dallas, you had like 46 games to go to in 7 days or something. So Chris Hayden got his tail run off, but overall, I think the Dallas Cup has gotten back in the general really good direction. I really miss the Super 14s, though. I wish they would bring that back. That was the 14s. It was a big Telemundo initiative. That 14s that was kind of like the Super Group. I missed that. I thought that was a really cool addition, but because then you had like the GA Cup is like that for the 15s and the 17s, and then they had the 19s, and by adding the 14s, I thought you added a nice bracket to that idea. But we'll see if that comes back someday. And the girls needs a lot of help, girls side. Hopefully it'll get better.
Dallas's performance overall in the tournament?
Pretty good. U12 level, which is the first level academy, U12 North won the Dallas Cup. And if you don't know, that 12s play on smaller fields with smaller sides, so they split the academy into two, South and North. North won the U12s. The U13s, which everyone says is just a ridiculous side, they won the U13 bracket. The U14s got to the semifinal and lost to the team that eventually won. They gave up 1 goal prior to that game, all tournament. That's a really good team. The 15s did not get out of their group. That's a team, at the 15s, we're at the GA Cup, which is, again, like a super group because it's got internationals and MLS teams only. So they did not get out of the group. The 16s were here, the new team. They were here in Dallas, and they went to the semi and lost in the semi to Solar, which is still an MLS Next team for now. They haven't quit yet. They're quitting for next season. They lost on PKs. That, of course, was, got to be a heartbreaker for the Dallas kids when you lose to Solar, your arch rival in town, if you will. The arch rival is not like it's heated and fighting or anything, but, they don't. The Solar loves beating FC Dallas, so that was a painful one for the kids in that game, I'm sure. Interesting game, actually. And then the 17s in the GA Cup got all the way to the final. which was an underdog run because they weren't that highly regarded, and made a good run, won their group, and did really well and got away to the final. Partially some because the Ice Stone is great, and also because they basically abandoned midfield and put all their talent up front and were able to, and in the back, and were able to hold on to games. And then the 19s didn't get out of their group, but they had all that shenanigans with the ref in the Madrid game, and then they had a PK that didn't get called that should have been, that would have meant they would have won the group, and that since they ended up not winning, the team that went through instead won the whole thing. So I think generally speaking, the FC Dallas sides will all feel relatively good about their performances, even if they only had 2 of them win. They were 2 of the younger ones, which is kind of exciting. So if you were into the future of the thing, and the GA 17s did way better than everybody expected, which is great. They actually finally overachieved that age bracket. It's underachieved for like 4 years now. So that's really good.
Okay.
That's a lot, I know.
No, hey man, the Dallas Cup. It's
With a little
awesome.
GA mixed in, yeah.
Love it very much. Okay. Well, anything else we need to get into for this episode?
Well, other than North Texas being stinkaroo the last 2 games, which is really weird because they were pretty good for the first 2 games. So I have some thoughts about their, the people they're choosing to play, and maybe they're trying to rotate or give guys chances or whatever. But they're gonna have to, to remind ourselves. I have to remind myself that winning is not necessarily the point there. They want to win games, but they want to develop guys too. Because if you're trying to win, you would not have loaned out Colin Smith, and Parker would be down. Colin's on loan in Birmingham and Parker's with Dallas. They would have sent both of them down all the time, and you would start Norris down there all the time, and you would have, you wouldn't sit Hope for a game, you wouldn't sit Sante for a game. You would go all out, you would win a lot more games, but such as it is.
I just before we go, I am remembering that this weekend at the Dallas game, the theme night is Dino Night.
Dino Night.
Dino Night. Sorry, not Dino.
They're not
Dino
dogs,
Night.
they're dinosaurs.
Right, I know. And somebody asked me, what is Dino Night? And I was like, I don't, obviously it's dinosaur themed, but what? And then it dawned on me, it's going to be a bunch of people running around in those inflatable dinosaur costumes. And then the other day they released a video, I think it's Paxton doing something, with an intern or somebody, or I don't know, maybe it's Dan Hunt
and a dinosaur.
And one of those inflatable dinosaur uniforms. So I guess, I don't know if it's one of these people or if it's going to be like 1,100 of them or something, but shenanigans likely will ensue. It doesn't feel very serious, but hopefully it'll be a good time for everybody.
It's a drone show. It doesn't matter.
Is it a drone show?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Is it drones about dinosaurs? Or drone?
Yes.
Okay. The 80s one was themed.
Well, Peter, the real answer is Dino Night is a celebration of my wife because she's got short little T-Rex arms. This is what.
What?
My wife has relatively short arms, and people in her family make fun of her. Like, she has some T-Rex sweatshirts, that say like "hug me" with little short arms.
Right.
So I've been joking with her that Dino Night was a celebration for her.
Oh, I've never noticed this about your wife, that she had T-Rex arms.
No, it's those people. It's not like she's got. It's not that bad.
It's not like a birth defect.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
They're not
okay.
little stubbies. I'm just saying that relatively speaking, she's got short arms, and everybody in her family makes fun of her for it. So I've been joking with her that this is her celebratory Dino Night.
Are you gonna make her wear one of her Dino T-shirts?
To
the game one. Okay,
yeah. T-Rex Christmas sweater for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Dan, I am excited for you that you get to go home and attend whatever event you're attending, but mostly that you get to go watch your team and your club play a big match. I'm happy for you, my friend.
Yeah, bollocks to my grandmother's 98th birthday. It's all about the Luton game, really.
You going to buy a new shirt when you're there?
I have this season, so maybe
you've
not.
already got it. All right.
Who knows? Maybe I'll take some orders for crap to bring back or something.
I was just about to ask, but I didn't want to assume. Maybe I'll throw in an order from you from the pro shop, please, Mr. Crooke. A pair of Luton home shorts would be awesome.
Which color?
I'm assuming they're orange, or do they wear white with their orange shirts?
I believe it's white,
I always forget you're
navy,
the short
and
guy.
orange.
Yeah.
Huh?
I always forget you're the short guy, Peter.
Yeah, I am into shorts. Yeah. What color are the shorts?
I believe they white, navy, and orange.
All right, I'll have a look. I'll have a peek.
With a little Ethan Horvath number on it, just for
me. Awesome. Well, have a great and safe trip, and we'll talk to you again in a few weeks, I assume, Dan?
Yep, it'll be I fly back, the 4th of May, so...
All right. Very good. We'll hold the fort down for you, my friend. And Buzz, thank you, sir. Thank you for all your hard work at the Dallas Cup. Everybody here in the Metroplex highly appreciates it.
Oh, thanks.
I'm speaking for Dallas-Fort Worth. I've decided I have the authority to do such things.
Well, it may be Dallas fans because I don't really have much time to get into anybody up but FC Dallas because it's a huge tournament and that's a lot just to do that. But hopefully everybody else went out and watched games and enjoyed it. You know, it was a good time.
Yep.
Solar, by the way, girls are incredible. They won 3 or 4 of the championships. Dallas won 1, but
yeah.
Shout out to Solar girls, man. They're ridiculous.
The girl that scored the brace for Dallas, I think she's the U16's Holly Storer.
She had a hat trick last year in the final.
Yeah, she is the daughter of one of my teammates.
No.
Yeah, she's a baller.
She almost made the hot list today, but I went with the girl that had the 4 goals in one game instead.
Wayne, I won't tell Wayne you blew his daughter off.
Well, 4 goals in one game is pretty cool, so I went with that.
Maybe you should have put her on the list.
Well, she only had a couple more beyond the 2, so I went with the one that had 4. I thought that was cool.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, she didn't get extra credit for being the daughter of one of my teammates?
No, I didn't realize that's who that was until you said that. She did have the hat trick last year in the final, so at least I know that. So
yeah.
She had 5 and 2 straight finals. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, she's pretty ridiculous.
Third Degree, the podcast, has been brought to you by soccer90.com. Check out all the latest FC Dallas, North Texas Soccer Club, U.S. Men's National Team gear. They got it all the clubs around the world. New Dallas Tornado stuff with the cool jersey they got right now. Part of the Dallas Tornado Soccer Collection at soccer90.com. Use code Third Degree at checkout to get 20% off your entire order. Some exclusions do apply.
All right. Well, thank you, Buzz, again. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, FC Dallas Curious fan. We love you, and we will speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
I get to listen.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.